Everyone loves having a really strong sustain, but Starro honestly has pushed it a little too far, especially with the 2 we did get in 3.x, and I generally do think it's a problem for other sustains that already exist in the game, obviously, and also the bar that has been set for future ones that are going to release in 4.x, 5.x, so on and so forth. This is not really a new thing. It's happened once already in the past, technically 2 if you also want to go back to 1.x. It all started with huohuo and luocha. Luocha obviously was the best sustain for a little bit until huohuo, where obviously she was better because she provided less heal but rather more buffing with the attack and energy. Not too long later we got aventurine, who practically was the considered best sustain in the game until all the way till 3.x, just because shields kind of had their way to do things. Obviously we also got lingsha, who did pretty fine. Lingsha definitely I feel like was on the more balanced side of releases. She wasn't really a sustain that like was meta defining like aventurine was. When aventurine came out as a shielder, he really just was like, I will negate all damage for you and also do damage, which obviously doesn't hold up to this day because he is an older unit. And then huohuo obviously aged really well, still a sustain, really the only limited one that you can use that is older, besides, you know, aventurine and lingsha, but again, we'll talk about that in a second. That's just like a little bit of a brief. It's not something that is completely foreign that sustains end up just being so much stronger than the last. The main point of this video is talking about the bar that they do set. It can be similar to supports and also DPS, but this time I'm mainly talking about sustains because it's a lot more apparent in them. They had a lot more clear roles. Aventurine was general, he can go on teams, but he was obviously best on follow-up attack. It was good that he was relatively SP positive. huohuo, she could be SP neutral if he had E1 SP positive. They relatively had their teams where they work best. huohuo was fantastic on dot or any HP character technically because you wanted healing, although usually in that case you would use luocha or even lingsha. Since huohuo's buff was attack related but energy was universal, her healing was good, you could really use it anywhere. But they really just had their places where they excelled as opposed to others, so you still had different spots for sustains. Now we fast forward to 3.x, where the bar was set with both Hyacine and Danheng. These characters really just do everything. They quite literally outdamage older DPS as well. If you take a look at each part of everyone's kit, assuming mainly just E0S1 that gets stronger obviously with investment, at E0S1 Hyacine not only heals you significantly, has an HP drain via her light cone, which is only useful for 2 characters in the game, mainly, well, 3 characters in the game, but also can technically always be considered good because it makes her do more damage with the attack, and also vulnerability, which is universally good. But then the main thing, she does insane amounts of damage when you have some form of AoE buffing, quite literally out-damaging older DPS in the game, simultaneously practically making it to where you will not die. The only way you die with Hyacine is going into a battle that has a one-shot, because after you get hit with a really hard-hitting attack, she will just heal it back to full nearly. On top of that, she can help you with these attacks that might normally kill you with other sustains, because at the same time, she increases everyone's max HP, which is universal for the sole reason it increases everyone's ability to survive. And then for HP scalers, that is just more damage for them. So she quite literally does it all. She can honestly do your taxes at that point. You tell me what's scarier, the Green Goblin or Fat Fuck. One I can fight, the other I'm running away from. Quite literally the only teams you can't use her on is just teams where you consume too much skill points, because obviously you want to use skill enough to keep her ultimate up, and without the usage of skill or at least getting hit a lot for Hyacine herself to gain some energy back, it's going to be a bit difficult. That is the only time you cannot use her. She might not be the best in Break. That's really it. Anywhere else she can be second to best option really. AoE attack, fantastic for the Herda. Great healing, obviously best in slot for Castress Evernight, for HP scalers mainly. You now have that Cyrene Hyacine set up for my day. For older DPS, she again can quite literally out DPS them. When I first got Hyacine, my thought was obviously to use her with Blade. Blade, especially after buff, was doing good damage, but I was just seeing the damage that Hyacine did practically being the same, if not more, and it was quite depressing. And then on the flip side, Danheng, while a free unit, is still I'm going to consider him like still a bar. He's free, but he's still just incredibly broken. This guy, properly built, so on 4-piece of the shield set, my Danheng in the background footage doesn't have it, so sometimes his shield broke because I'm not getting the pieces that I need. But Danheng with that set, a solid light cone, be it the battle pass, even just be it a high base attack light cone. But I'm considering Sig here, so you can probably have like a 4K attack Danheng. That guy's shield is practically what we thought Aventurine's shield was when he came out, but honestly even more. However, to add more than that, Danheng's damage via a Bondmate and then the Enhanced Dragon is significantly higher than anything Aventurine can do. having a shield that is practically just unbreakable even with the hardest hitting AA attacks. Top it all off, with any attack scaler, he is probably going to be best in slot just because he also has a big attack buff. Aventurine still had a spot on the follow-up attack team, but honestly with Fei Xiao, I'm pretty sure running Danheng is just better now. Just because of the fact that, one, he has the bottom main attack that adds up a lot more damage than I think Aventurine would do, and then two, the actual attack buff, which is going to make Fei Xiao do a lot more damage. So you can really tell when it comes to sustains, Hyacine and Danheng are really just like the titans. With those two characters, you really just have the option to run them anywhere. Danheng can go on Dot, Finon, Anaxa, Fei Xiao, Akron, these older DPS, really any older DPS that scales off attack. He is going to be on there, and he's going to do significantly better than everyone else, while providing a lot more than someone like Luotra could provide, obviously. Assuming, ignoring the fact that it's shield versus heal, but, same thing in the end, sustain. And then when you actually want healing, you got Castris, Evernight, whatever, Blade, general heals teams. Again, these older DPS, maybe your Daneng's on a different team, you can just throw a Hyacine on there instead, and it'll be just as good, maybe if not a little worse. Just gonna really outperform any other healer or shielder in the game. Now for the main point of this video, why is it bad for mainly future and also just current characters? I'm going to keep the current characters part short because obviously a new sustain needs to be better than the last for them to sell any bit well. But honestly back then it didn't really feel so bad because obviously Aventurine was like the only shielder in the game, so that was something else. It's not like he completely invalidated huohuo's role. Lingsha released and you still could use huohuo in a lot of teams, like she was better than Lingsha in a few teams as well, while Lingsha was better in others. It still felt like it was up there, but not as bad as 3.x, where now it's just completely different. Now it's like you use Hyacine on these teams, she's gonna be best in slot, and if it's not her, it's usually always Danheng. Never really the rest. Now why is it bad for future sustains is just because the bar has been set so goddamn high. Sustains are now expected to obviously do the role of sustaining really well, which is, the main point. So if it's a healer, they need to heal a lot. If it's a shielder, they need to shield a lot. Now they also either have to buff your team or debuff the enemies. Back then, it was all about just keeping your team alive. You could ignore Aventurine's part of him doing damage. He had very minuscule debuffs as well, which back then obviously was good, but nowadays is really nothing. huohuo's attack and energy is still considered good to today's standards, so I guess that's pretty good. But again, back then it wasn't really like much. The whole thing was, can they keep your team alive properly? But now it's not just that, otherwise Luotra would still be broken. There's a reason Luotra isn't really considered that good anymore. Just because now your sustains again are expected to sustain very well, better than the old characters, which that part is expected. But also the fact that they need to again debuff or heal, debuff meaning make enemies take more damage, reduce their defense, whatever they have to do, or they buff your team by giving them attack, HP, and then also on top of all that are now expected to do a good portion of the team's damage. Danheng's hits himself don't do damage, but the bond mate, when you get it enhanced, if your actual character that is the bond mate is strong, that dragon even at E0 S0 can do upwards from 500k, and then invested in Danheng can have that dragon do up to like 1 million, even 2 million. I've seen a 2 million hit from that dragon. Actually just ridiculous. Hyacine obviously on her best team is where she is a part of the DPS. Like I forget she's a sustain on that team sometimes, out damaging the DPS they are with. And now because of that, the next sustain is expected to do that as well, because then it's like, why would I pull for whoever is releasing in 4.x as a sustain when Hyacine or Danheng can do it because they do it like that much better or something. Like let's say they release a sustain in 4.x and their main focus is obviously sustaining, but they don't provide anything substantial, because they also have to be providing something substantial and also doing good damage. They have to just straight up be better than Hyacine or Danheng. And I really don't want to imagine a world where someone is better than Hyacine at a role. And then obviously when it comes to shielders, that as well. These sustains now just have to do so much to the point that they might as well be the DPS of the team. And I really do think it has just gotten out of hand, and I kind of hope we get to a point where maybe there's a character that's better than Hyacine on certain teams as a healer, but not like Castra's team, because like Remembrance, all that stuff. Maybe if that's the case, that's fine then. But I honestly see it to a point where our next healer is going to be better than Hyacine, and it's going to be a downward spiral where the sustain is going to be the one that is actually the DPS of the team. Just because again the bar has been set so high, they have to do a bunch of damage, they have to buff or debuff a lot, and they have to sustain incredibly well. The bar has just been set too high for these, and honestly I am scared to see what it brings, and I do definitely think it's a problem. I want to have a disclaimer at the very end though. This is just my own personal opinion. You might think differently, and something different can occur. As I mentioned, maybe they start releasing healers that are side grades to Hyacine. By that, I mean not effectively replacing her, but maybe being better on other teams. Same thing with Danheng. Maybe they release a shielder that is just as good as shielding as him, but he might be better on some other team. Personally, I doubt that though. I really just think it's going to be a direct jump. It's just so hard to balance around these sustains now. It's just insane. But again, I could always be wrong. That does bring us to the end of the video. That's why I do personally think the sustain problem is just getting out of hand and how they are made. Again, definitely feel free to comment down below your opinion on it. Maybe you agree, maybe you think differently, you don't think it's a bad idea, that every sustain is just significantly better for some reason, or you have a specific reason. Again, just feel free to discuss, comment down below what you think. Everyone is going to have different opinions. Feel free to discuss with someone else. If you did find this video enjoyable, dropping a like would be greatly appreciated. If you're new to the channel or haven't done so already, be sure to subscribe and turn on the bell icon for future videos like this, along with all other types of Star Wars content. Check the description to check out my Archive channel, and I'll see you later. Peace out.